order. Lisa, would you call the roll, please?
David Burris.
Here.
J.R. Huddleston.
Here.
Deborah Johnston. Here. Bill Lukens.
Here.
Larry Pratt.
Here.
Craig Roaming.
Present.
Linda Barbell. Here. Melanie Wilson. Here. Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get into the bulk of the agenda, we may not have them tonight, but I just want to remind the council that our new microphones are very sensitive. They pick up every little sound, every little conversation that you heard, every other actions are picked up. So, when we get back to the front of the microphone, just keep in mind that they're very sensitive. Conflict of interest, as always. Do you have anything that you voting on that the council know? I need a motion for an approved agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Amended agenda, I'm sorry. I said approved, but I meant to say amended. We have two amendments. Misty will keep me on track to make sure I get these right. Bills in between. Notice that there's two bills to a U.S. bank. The second one, so that would leave you a new balance on bills in between of $199,743.21. So that's removing the second charge to U.S. bank on bills in between. And then on current claims on page 8. Builder's first source for $440.20. That bill has previously been paid. So removing that from the bill would take the current claims down to $336,377.94. So bills in between changes to $199,743.21, and current claims to $336,377.94.
Make a motion to approve the amended agenda with bills in between now reflecting $199,743.21 and current claims reflecting $336,377.94.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Need a motion to approve the minutes from the April 19th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 19th council meeting.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Need a motion to approve the bills in between.
Make a motion to approve bills in between for $199,743.21.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Motion to approve the current claim.
Make a motion to approve current claims for $336,377.94. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Motion to approve the Wells Fargo credit card.
Make a motion to approve the Wells Fargo credit card claim, $10,112.78.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Takes us to communications from the public. Is there anybody that would like to address the council tonight? Had a gentleman that stopped in and asked if I would read a letter that he wrote to the mayor and council at tonight's meeting. Compliment to the mayor and city council. I want to commend you for the good job you are doing to get the Fall River cleaned up. I am glad you explained that the Corps of Engineers is in charge of the river. I remember when it was a beautiful, clear stream. There were many beautiful mallard ducks and their little ones swimming up and down the river. There are also many beautiful goldfish in the river. They are bringing back Fall River to its beautiful look of many years ago. There are also many children who love to play in the river water. The people who think the old brown cattails are pretty have not adjusted to the western appreciation of the clear water stream. Hot Springs is a very historic town. The city has gone to great length to preserve many of the historic stone buildings to their original state. We don't need the many newcomers trying to change our historic town and way of life. I will soon have lived in Fall River County for 96 years. Thank you, Russell Wyatt. And council, you have a copy of his letter in your packet. So on communications from the public, we have a briefing from the Hot Springs Baseball Association. Do we have someone here on their behalf?
He's postponed 2 weeks on that.
2 weeks?
I think I'll pull that off the agenda.
All right. Council updates. Library quarterly report. Okay.
Sure. Thank you. It's nice to be here tonight. There's 4 of the 5 members of our board with us tonight. You have the library annual report in front of you. I just say that as a snapshot, Peggy did the best she could coming in last July. It's basically, she was only here for half of the year, but the figures are there. It's kind of in the past. What I'd like to do is kind of tonight focus on the future. And you have several items coming up in your agenda later on, and one is the hiring a full-time librarian, which we're very excited that we will have someone of her qualifications coming in. Also allowing Heather Lee to go to the certification course. For those of you that aren't aware of it, the state library puts on this course. It's for 4 summers with classes in between during the year. And at the end of the 4th summer, then you have your certification. Heather's very excited about going. It's in our budget, but I wanted you to be aware of why it's important that she go. And it also helps with our certification with the state to have more certified staff members on our staff. The other thing is that, Mark's here, that, that we're going to have a summer reading program this year. For those of us that grew up in Hot Springs or had children in Hot Springs, we know that the summer reading program lasted for most of the summer. And that was one of Peggy's goals before she left, and she's got it in place. The staff is already working on it, so that instead of the 1 month that we've had in the past, it will actually go through to the end of July, possibly into the 1st of August, which we all know getting kids reading is a very good thing to do, and they've got crafts planned and that sort of thing. So we're really excited about it. I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but the average people, the number of people coming into the library every day is at least 100 people. It's a busy place. For those of you that haven't been up there, I'd encourage you to go up there. The people that are refinishing the logs have been there this week, last week, and they're hoping to get done pretty soon here. It's beautiful. The logs look wonderful. Please come and see it. Please come and enjoy the library, and please say yes to all the things on the agenda coming up. Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions for Jane?
Looking at your numbers, I was just kind of wondering if you had approached the county to support the library a lot more.
We've approached the library. We've approached the county. In fact, the mayor was with the librarian last year. Whatever we get from the county is offset by the city, so we really feel it's the city's obligation to go forward to get more money. If it was frosting, which is what we would really like it to be, then it would make more sense for us to move forward. But when I first started years ago, or not even years ago, we didn't get anything. It was $5,000. It's now up to about $20,000 or $25,000. We've been asking for $40,000 because that would basically pay for a staff member. But again, it's just offsetting to our budget, so it's really up to you folks to go forward if that's how you're going to do it. We would like it not to be offsetting. I'll just put that
Yeah,
there.
who put the offsetting part in there?
It wasn't us.
Okay.
To Jane's point, Peggy and I did attend the budget sessions last year with the county commissioners and asked for more. Their first response was, does the city feel like we're paying the appropriate amount for dispatch services? They did increase their allowance to us by $5,000. Anyone else?
Jane, I just want to say that in reviewing the report, it does, the report still shows an impressive library function. So I appreciate Peggy's work on that, and appreciate all the folks at the library.
Well, we appreciate your support, obviously, and when budget comes times, we'll be asking for a little bit more, but we are grateful. But do come and see it. Check out some books. It's a great place.
Jane, I just have one question. It's nothing negative, just an observation.
Sure.
I know back in the day you had Blackville Special Services help clean the library. Just wondering what happened with that program.
Actually, that was, I shouldn't speak for sure, but I believe that they were the ones that couldn't fulfill it. They didn't have the
That's
people
right.
to do it.
Okay.
So, and we're very blessed to have Carl doing it right now. He's doing a great job for us.
Thank you.
As your finance officer, I'd point out page 12. I hope you all reviewed the library report and the selected key ratios that shows our library compared to the state library averages. And so our wonderful library and the beautiful things that happen there is a result of the support the city and the community provides. And so it's fun to look at those ratios in comparison to how we perform against the rest of the state. So make sure you look at page 12 of that report.
Yeah, and to page 12 that Misty was talking about, there were a number of items that I highlighted on here. And one of them that comes to mind for me is towards the bottom of it, the portion of library's total circulation that is children's materials. Our library is exceeding the statewide averages for that. And it's obvious you folks are focusing on children's programs and enhancing those. And Jane just spoke about the summer reading program. I was encouraged to see that one. Anyone else?
Very impressive, in my opinion, actually, for our town on service.
So thank you to the whole board. You're responsible for the direction of the library, and we appreciate everything that you put into it. Thank you very much. Takes us to personnel. Can I get a motion to approve personnel actions A through E?
I make a motion to approve personnel actions A through E.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Congratulate Mary. And
Thank you very much.
she can start working tomorrow.
I think she's got an appointment at City Hall at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
On to ordinance. First reading of ordinance 1241. Can I get a motion on that, please?
Make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 1241, an ordinance amending Title 9 General Regulations, Chapter 94, Streets and Sidewalks, 94.11, removal of snow and ice from public sidewalks.
Second.
Goodness. Discussion.
Sorry. At the first reading, we recommend the removal of the from public sidewalks in the title of the chapter, since now we're addressing both the removal of snow and ice from public sidewalks and from private property. We just thought that when we printed it out, so it really doesn't change substantively any of the language in the ordinance, just in the title. We should just limit it to from public sidewalks since we added the addition of the private property.
Are you recommending then just removal of snow and ice?
No, from public sidewalks.
It addresses just public sidewalks.
In the
We expanded
title
this
of
to
the
include
chapter.
parking lots and private property.
at the very, very, very top.
Yep, from the title of the chapter.
Yep.
Okay. Bill, I think you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, on B1, where we are required to have a valid city contractor's license, do we need to be specific as to what type of contractor's license? Do we need to specify a Class C contractor's license? Because when we look at, the way I got to this question is when you look at the fee schedule, there's 3 fees in there for contractors' licenses, A, B, and C. And so then when if you look at it, it would seem reasonable for this magnitude of work that it would be a Class C contractor's license. But when you go to Title IX, 110.15 and 17 and look at what's listed under a Class C contractor, it's very specific in the type of work a Class C contractor does. And snow removal's not listed, so we've got no direct reference for our fee to go to our fee schedule. And if we do want to use the amount for a Class C, then we probably at some point need to revise 110-15 and 17 and either specifically add snow removal or somehow
Other work.
make some generic statement to allow that. But right now, we've got no direct way to get from here to a fee schedule, and it's fine. What I've learned over the last 4 years is it'll work great
Until it doesn't.
while this group of folks is sitting here, but after we have a few changes, it won't make as much sense as it needs to. So whether we change it to Class C or simply the appropriate license, maybe we can get real generic here. And I think we could still, I don't think that would be a substantial change that we would have to have a first reading.
I like the generic title,
The only, let me just make a
the
comment.
appropriate license.
Yeah, the only comment on that is by saying the appropriate license, now we're back in the same quagmire of, well, what's the appropriate
Well,
license?
and that still gives us an action item to revise
The other code,
the,
okay.
the Title IX, 110, 15, and 17, so that we can figure out what appropriate is.
Okay, no, that's good.
And how are we going to deal with good neighbors?
If I decide to clear my neighbor's driveway for free,
I don't find it to be a problem, because if you're not charging for it, it's just back to kindness.
but if I clear your driveway and fill up the city alley with the snow from your driveway, is it causing the same problem, I think is what Deb's saying.
And what we're trying to get taken care of here is people moving the snow back out onto the street.
Well, yeah, that's the whole,
You know, but, yeah, I'm a good neighbor. I have a big plow. I take care of my neighbors every now and then.
do you leave the snow in the alley?
No, I take it off the streets, because I know I'll get in trouble if I don't. And I have my own driveway where I run out of room to put the snow.
Yeah.
You know, the last few shovels might go out to the street because the sun hits it and melts it. I got a lot of shade.
I think the important part of that, Deb, is you're not doing that as a commercial
As a
business.
commercial,
That's
right.
really the driving force here, I think.
I just don't want to get in trouble for being a good neighbor. And there's a lot of those around town, good neighbors.
Any other comments from council?
You do from the audience.
Bob?
Now, I realize the ordinance is talking, and Deb mentioned it briefly, about when you're shoveling your walks and so forth, to not put it back out onto the street. But after 22 years of shoveling sidewalk down along South Chicago Street in front of an Ace Hardware store, where are we supposed to put that snow? That snow's not going into the store to get melted. It's going to go back out onto the street. When you've got a business along the stretches like that, you can't expect them to not put it back out on the street. What are they supposed to do with it?
As a general rule, that snow goes into the bump outs, or it also goes in at the end of the, so if you're plowing, for example, the hardware store down at the end of the.
We're not plowing, we're hand shoveling.
Okay, well, I'm using that term generically. All I'm saying is you're pushing that snow so folks can get into your store. That's what you're doing. Instead of pushing, you're pushing it aside and not out into the street. That's essentially what you're doing. What you should be doing.
It doesn't happen that way. And it's not going to happen that way.
I push it all on the street.
And the flip side of that is, prior to shoveling those sidewalks, you've got a city crew that has come along there and put a pile along the edge of the sidewalk that's 2 or 3 feet high.
Can I address this real quick?
Yeah, sure
This is something that the committee had looked at because, and let me tell you the spirit of this change. The spirit is commercial contractors plowing parking lots, large parking lots, and pushing all that into the sidewalk and the streets. That is the spirit of this change. It's easy for me to say, sit here, how we're going to enforce it. All I'm telling you is that what you're talking about is not the reason this is written this way, if that helps. I'm not sure. I realize that's only my word. I'm just telling you how it's written.
Is there anything that addresses the sidewalk downtown specifically?
In this change? No. And Mike and Bob, you make a good point. Anybody that drives around town after a snow event sees the folks that are shoveling the snow at the city piled up in front of their driveways right back into the street. There's not many places to put it.
Yeah, this is mostly just sidewalk. We're landlocked. So there's no really alley to push it to. There's no, I mean, I guess at the old UW, there's a driveway in the alleyway. But by that time, if there's 3 inches of snow on the sidewalk, I just kick it on the curb, straight out.
We're trying to provide a wide enough path too for the wheelchairs and everything coming through. Kind of gotta push it.
This year is the first year that I recognize that the ladies at City Hall shovel in front of City Hall. I figured, well, I need to do my day up and help do that. And I put the snow right in the road.
Oh, we put some in the alley.
I didn't. I went right in the road.
Mostly what this has brought to our attention with the street department is people with the plows and the pickups. Like they'll do it in front of somebody's house and push it down the street and leave it right in the street. And if the city don't see it, the people driving around from that alley or around the block has to go around it because it's piled up 3-4 foot high and you can't drive it. And then if the city don't see it for a week or two, it sits there for a week or two, because they do all over town. Once they do that certain area, they don't come back usually. And that was a big problem that we've been seeing.
Very much. If allow me to point out real quick, again, I know I said this, but let me reiterate, this was not intended to control how you shovel the sidewalk in front of your business. This was designed, the spirit of which was to control, ensure we have licensed contractors doing the work on property. It's really not about this, your property, my property thing, as much as it is liability and those contractors with plows that are operating without a license, and I hope they have insurance, but I mean, we don't know that. So that's the reason we're trying to apply that same policy to deal with contractors to everyone doing commercial business like that. So it's really not meant to control how you shovel snow in front of your business.
I can understand what you're saying, Jeff, and I can think back several years where there was a situation where the contractor that was clearing the parking lot for Wells Fargo cleared that back lot and plugged the alley that runs from University clear back down to Chicago Street to where no trucks or anything could get through, which is where our delivery trucks were coming from. And we had several occasions where we had a stuck semi at that point, just because of that.
I realize it doesn't cover every scenario, and that's not.
Never
the
will.
intent, But we can't do that. But the intent, so you know what the spirit of this modification was, what we're trying to do.
Any comments from the public? Council? So a couple changes have been recommended. Can you highlight again what you're asking changes to be?
In B1, required to have an appropriate, valid city contractor's license. So add the word appropriate before valid.
The other one is in the title, right underneath Ordinance 1241, and then in the paragraph, therefore be it ordained that we remove from public sidewalks after the section 94.11 removal of snow and ice.
Say that again, Misty, so I can read
That's 94.11.
The top of the ordinance, the last 3 words in the title, from public sidewalks, remove that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down, therefore be ordained by the city council of the city of Hot Springs. Says that Title 9, General Regulations, Chapter 94, Street and Sidewalks, Section 94.11, removal of snow and ice. The title used to include from public sidewalks. Other place you see it.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the recommendation that you're making to the amendment.
Yes.
Or to the motion. And Misty? Oh. Will you accept the amendment?
I do. You want me to restate it?
Sure.
I don't want to. I'll try. All right. My motion is to approve the first reading of Ordinance 1241, an ordinance amending Title 9 General Regulations, Chapter 94, Streets and Sidewalks, removal of snow and ice. On the document itself and the title, leaving off from public sidewalk, taking out under therefore be it ordained the words public sidewalks, and adding under B1 from private property the word appropriate, inject that after A and before valid. So it will read, persons contracted by owners or tenants to remove snow and ice utilizing motorized equipment such as truck plows, snow blowers, etc. from private property such as parking lots are required to have an appropriate, valid city contractor's license and carry the appropriate insurance. That's my motion.
Second. Good job. Discussion? Any more? Misty, would you call the roll, please?
Larry Pratt,
Yes.
Craig Romey,
Yes.
Linda Varvel,
Yes.
Melanie Wilson,
Yes.
David Burris,
Yes.
J.R. Huddleston,
Yes.
Deborah Johnston,
Yes.
Bill Lukens.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. first reading passes. New business, item A, a possible motion discussion to approve and accept 2021 South Dakota Public Library Survey.
I make a motion to approve, accept the 2021 South Dakota Public Library Survey.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. New business item B, possible motion discussion to review and approve the 2021 unaudited annual report.
Make a motion to approve the 2021 unaudited annual report for the city of Oxford.
Second.
Discussion? Misty, it's quite a report. Is there anything that you'd like to summarize for us in that?
I plan to give a summary during my finance officer report. I would point out that this is an unaudited report. It'll be published in the city newspaper, which is the Fall River County Herald-Star, and also on the city website. Its purpose is to inform council and other users of our financial statements, of our financial position as of December 31st, 2021. What we'll publish and what you are approving is a condensed version of the financial statements compiled in the annual audit report. And you may not think so, but it is designed to be user-friendly. So the report and all accompanying work papers will be audited by Cato. I don't anticipate any significant changes to what you see on your report, and I'll give a summary during the finance officer report of how each fund performed.
When you mention user-friendly, can you find a way to make it council-friendly? Any other questions, comments?
I'd like to add to Misty's report, very thorough, very concise, put a lot of work into it, that's obvious in looking at what she's put together for us. Then the explanations that she has provided in each one of the departments and of our expenditures and our revenue, and a very good job, Misty. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. New business item C, possible motion discussion to approve a change order.
Make a motion to approve change order number 1 with complete construction, project number 2021-001, PCN X05P, water main and sanitary sewer improvement. Change order increases the contract price by $1,965.73 to a new total contract price of $1,732,925.52. Note an additional $38,809.97 in parts paid by the city.
Second.
Discussion. Tracy, would you like to give us a highlight on this?
Okay, well, that was part of why I came by this evening. This change order in particular relates to the Jennings Avenue water main, pretty much the water main in itself. As you may recall, we had that water main break last fall, 2 weeks before the big DOT bid letting took place, which we were able to include the length of that in that project. However, the intersections at North River Street and Jennings, and then also at North Chicago and Jennings, there's actually no accurate records from 42 years ago when that was installed. So that had to be, in a sense, somewhat of a blind bid, and we would rather not have a contractor just give a blanket price for something we don't know what they're bidding on. So that we knew would have to wait until the pavement was actually removed and it could be excavated to see what was actually installed. We actually have plans from 1980, but it wasn't built according to those plans. So, you know, The person who would have probably known exactly how that went in would have been Charlie Akers, and he's no longer with us. So we had to do the excavation, and we were able, of course, to determine what actually had to be done. So in the interest of definitely saving money, it's far more economical for the city to purchase at our wholesale cost the parts that were essentially the unknown parts that needed to be put in to make the proper connections and upgrades at those intersections. So that's what that $38,000 worth of parts is all for. It's for two actually very complicated intersections. And then the $1,900 from the contractor themselves is their extra work for putting it in, which I found to be, given the price of construction work this day, I found that to be a very reasonable price on their part. So that's pretty much what that's all about.
Tracy, since you're here, the additional $15,000 in Northwest Pipes and this batch of claims related to the project, is that for the same area? Or different?
I would have to review those documents for sure. I think some of it is. But we've moved on to other, restocking things, and of course we had a water main break up on Albany that had nothing to do with this project, so.
Yeah, I think you did identify those as being related to the project, so
Yeah.
we'll see if it's the same
Yeah,
area.
if it was with the project, I would have used that code number.
These prices didn't have nothing to do with the sewer in that street, right?
No. No, they have not given us,
Well, the sewer's on here?
no, they have not given us their change order for the sewer yet.
Well, should there be one?
Yes.
Didn't we camera that? That's why we bought the camera, to camera all the sewers so they know what they're getting into?
They know what they're getting into on sewer. We had some extra down here on, the bypass.
Oh,
Yeah. No, we cameraed the whole North River Street and.
well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully no surprises, although I've heard there may be buried tunnels on North River Street.
Tracy had talked about the fact that once they got into actually excavating things, it wasn't built the way that the prints showed it was built. And I just need to remind council that expect this kind of thing happening more as the project goes forward. There's a lot of old utility systems in, and some of the folks, most of the folks that know how they're put in aren't with us anymore. So expect these kinds of change orders going forward. It's going to happen. All right, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. New business item D, a possible motion discussion of approving amendment number 1 to the AE2S.
Make a motion to approve Amendment 1 to the AE2S Water Master Plan Agreement, first approved by council on November 18th, 2021. Original amount was $15,800. Change amount of $17,740. Adjusted agreement amount is $33,540.
Second.
Discussion? Tracy?
Again, this is related to the potential new tank. And originally, 10 years ago, we were considering a new well up above the highest green on the golf course. And if you may recall, we had a public hearing about this earlier this winter. And in the ensuing 10 years, give or take, since that was originally proposed, there have been, by Fall River Water Users District, and I think maybe a couple other entities, there have been some rather unsuccessful Madison Formation wells that they have drilled. And they've invested, $1 million, maybe $2 million into essentially a dry hole. This was brought up at that public hearing, and we certainly took that very seriously. and felt that that is not a direction that the city should go. We don't want to be drilling holes that may not even produce and have all that money literally just wasted. We do know that from previous pumping tests, as well as our water use permits, that there is considerable extra capacity at the Evans pumping station. So the decision has been made to move towards upgrading the Evans pumping station and then upgrading piping systems to convey that water to a new tank. We still need that extra storage as we're seeing more and more homes built in the golf course area, expected possible expansion around the hospital. You know, that really seems to be our growth corridor out there. And there is a bottleneck right now that, you know, if we simply did not make these improvements, there's going to be, it would become a worse and worse problem with time, that that southwest part of town simply would not be able to get enough water from the existing storage tanks. And the only other solution to that would be to actually build a completely new, larger line from the 2 million gallon tank. Well, that costs as much as what we're talking about as far as putting in a third tank and having more water to pump to it. So this amendment to the agreement with AE2S Engineering and Environmental Services, what they are doing is preparing the formal facilities report or facilities plan that goes to the state reviewing board, when we would actually be going to them asking for grant funding, hopefully mostly grant funding, as well as possible loans to actually construct this project. So by changing our direction, and I'll back up just a little bit, what we did in November was to bring this back out from hibernation. Essentially, it's been about 12 years ago that the first facility plan was produced. That is no longer considered current enough by the state, so they require that it would be updated. So that was going to all be updated, and now, of course, we've completely changed the scope of where we're going to get the water from. So the difference is there's certainly some additional cost to the consultants, about $17,000. The good side of it is we are dealing with a known, reliable source of water that we're not going to be putting a $2 million dry hole into the ground.
So I guess maybe for the public's benefit, and maybe a reminder for some council members, in order to be eligible for a potential $6.5 million grant to build that new tank, we may need to spend an additional $17,000 to update our plan to make it current by state standards.
Kind of a preemptive strike.
So we got to spend a little bit of money in order to be considered for a lot more money.
And the city's been working with Bill Lass from the Black Hills Council of Local Governments to help us through this process and make sure that we've got everything okay. Last week they had their quarterly meeting, luncheon that I attended, and we talked a little bit about this, and July is our next opportunity to submit our grant request. So the timing's coming together to get these folks to finish the plan, get it updated where it needs to be anyway. So we'll be in a better position to apply for a grant.
How likely is it to get that grant?
Pardon?
How likely is it to get the grant? Good odds? Hard to say.
Pretty good odds.
Okay.
I'm an optimist. Some people say delusional. So we'll put a good package together and submit it and hope for the best. Any other questions? Thank you, Tracy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. New business item E, a possible motion discussion to set a public hearing on May 16th, 2022.
motion to discussion to set a public hearing on 5/16/22 at 7:10 p.m. on the special sale of alcoholic beverage license applications from Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce for the Chamber Wine Walk and Putt events to be held on 5/27/22 from 4 to 8 p.m. at the following locations: Minnetonka Coffee, LLC 503 North River Street, CBH Co-op 742 Jennings Avenue, Polish Salon, and Spa at 401 North River Street, Changing Seasons Floral at 323 South Chicago Street, Riverfront Gallery at 405 North River Street, Chicago Street Cafe at 138 South Chicago Street, and Chautauqua Craftsman and Artisans of the Black Hills 629 North River Street.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. New business item F, possible motion discussion to renew the following 2022 through 2023 malt beverage licenses.
I'll make a motion to renew the following 2022-2023 malt beverage licenses. American Legion Post number 71, Big Bats LLC, Big Time Pizza, BH Pizza Hut, Buffalo Dreamer Restaurant LLC, CS Inc. doing business as Winner's Circle, Dakota Mart Inc. doing business as Dakota Mart Convenience, Belgian Midwest LLC doing business as Dollar General Store, Family Dollar Stores of South Dakota LLC, Frankie's Place LLC, Good Karma Couture LLC doing business as Morning Sunshine, HSP Loft Properties LLC, MG Oil Company DBA Corner Pantry number 11A and 11B, Southern Hills Golf Course, Southern Hills Mercantile LLC, Springs Hotel LLC doing business as Springs Coffee Kiosk, Springs Steakhouse, and Woolies Western Grill.
Second. Discussion. Bob?
I've got a question on two of those places. The Nogan Midwest LLC is Dollar General. I'm assuming that's the Dollar General on University Street?
Yes.
Only?
Yes, we talked about adding numbers to that, and I got them. I'm sorry I didn't add it to this motion. We'll make sure we get the number added to the store.
Okay, that's just for the $1 General, right?
Yep.
And then Springs Coffee Kiosk or Springs Hotel LLC, is that for the motel or is that for the coffee drive-thru?
It's for that location, for the legal address. So they sell it from the kiosk, I believe, for their hotel.
But it stays on premise?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. New business item G, possible motion discussion to approve a travel training request.
I make a motion to approve a travel training request for Library Clerk Heather Lee to attend the South Dakota Library Certification Institute in Aberdeen on 6/12/22 to 6/17/22.
Second.
Discussion. Jane, you had made reference to the training request. Is there anything else you want to add?
Just Heather's been incredibly dedicated. At times it was only Heather and Peggy keeping the library going. So thank you very much. She's very excited to be able to go.
And looking through the agenda for it, again, the youth that you folks are putting together and addressing their needs, there's some pretty impressive training that they'll be attending, or she'll be attending. Thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. New business H, possible motion discussion to approve a travel training request for a school resource officer.
Make a motion to approve travel training request for the school resource officer, Thomas McMillan, to attend the basic school resource officer training in Bozeman, Montana on 8/14/22 and 8/20/22.
Second. Discussion. Now, the school is gonna pick up 70% of the training
Reimburse us for
Reimburse us,
75%.
for 75%.
75%?
Yes, that's in the contract.
Okay, well,
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. So the remaining three items are for discussion only. Give the council an opportunity to talk about these things and see what direction you want us to take. So the first one is a discussion only 2022 planned project, CA 021A PCN 08DT. The road reconstruction improving the roads around the school, including portions of 17th, 19th Street, Lincoln, Washington, and James Avenue, to request a grant extension. Council, if you remember, last year you approved money for this project, and you also approved setting aside some money for road repair projects elsewhere in the city. So as Tracy's begun looking at putting this project together, I'll ask him to continue to share with the council what he's found that raised the question for me of why we need to discuss this with you. Tracy, Misty, Jeff, and I sat down and talked about it, and after Tracy's explained what he's found out, then we'll share more with you.
Okay. Well, this grant was originally awarded, I believe it was in 2019. And of course, all along, we knew that this was concurrent with the highway project that was, of course, coming up. Of course, the highway project came in more expensive. I mean, everything is, you know, from right down to a gallon of milk. I mean, everything is just gone bonkers, so to speak. But construction projects in particular have in the last year and a half, at least utilities, what we have seen, literally has doubled. It's doubled what it was 2 years ago. This particular project that we got the grant for, the only way we actually qualified to get the grant in the first place was that we had to do essentially a soft match, but it definitely involves hard money, of doing the utilities in that area, because the grant is only for the streets. It's not for the utilities. So when I started looking at the total footage of streets up there, it's about 5,000 feet of streets, almost a mile. It adds up. You go around the corners, you do a few blocks here and a couple blocks here, and all of a sudden you have a mile. And these are streets that are 36 to 38 foot wide. So they're not narrow streets. They require a lot of asphalt. The other issue up there is a lot of the curb and gutter is in extraordinarily poor condition. That, you know, sometimes we can redo a street and save the curb and gutter. Probably about half of this area, the curb and gutter is not in good shape, especially by the school. That area on Lincoln Avenue is in very poor condition. The bottom line is the grant, I believe, is for about $560,000, give or take, 568?
580.
580. And original price estimates would have been about $750,000 to $800,000 for the street part of it, and maybe about $300,000 or $400,000 for the utilities. We can take those same numbers now and essentially double them. So the street would probably be at least $1 million, if not $1.2 million. And of course, we can look at that just from what the state's paying for, you know, their road construction project. That is actually, that's only about 2¼ miles. And this is a whole mile up there. It's different, it's asphalt, it's not concrete. But, and then of course, we know the utilities would be higher, we have to add the curb and gutter. Bottom line is current cost estimate would be somewhere between probably 1.9 and $2.2 million to actually do that project. We have a $580,000 grant. That puts the city in a position of having to come up with over $1.5 million to do this project. I don't feel that it's a really prudent thing to do at this time where we're right in the middle of this highway construction project. And I think it would be wise to ask for an extension of the time for the grant. I also believe that there, from what we can tell from some of our, like Bill Lass at Black Hills Council, local governments, and others, the Rural Water Organization has also informed me that there are new programs that have come out because of the ARPA funding that are actually designed to take these existing grants and essentially boost them up to account for these increases in cost. So I think it's a very prudent thing that we try to get the additional money to bridge that gap, make this a project that becomes much more affordable for the city's resources. And that's pretty much where that's at. That's why I recommend that we don't jump into this on top of everything else we've got going on right now.
So if you can help me out, I'm not familiar with the grant extension and how far down the road they allow that to, I suppose, sit with us or be approved to sit with us for a length of time.
Yeah, it would be a set length of time. The person in Pier at the Department of Transportation that administers these grants, when I talked to her about a month ago, 6 weeks ago about this, she said that she didn't really give that there would be a fixed extension, although I'm sure there would be. It would probably be at least a year, and it might be more than that, and they're really taking a lot into consideration because of the current pricing, the whole COVID supply chain disruption, all of these things that have really just made it not really business as usual anymore. So that we would simply ask, it would just be a matter of sending a letter to this office in Florida to ask for an extension. But at the same time, we may concurrently look at trying to actually apply for more money. I think that would be something we should do.
Now, do we apply where we've applied for this grant at the same part of the state, or do we need to apply elsewhere to get that money you talked about, the 1.5 or 2 million of the ARPA money that's available?
I would start with the same office, which is actually a Community Development Block Grant office. But the ARPA funding, I don't know if that has been completely defined yet, exactly how the state is administering all of these funds. And that's where our excellent service from Black Hills Council of Local Governments will really come into play to direct us. Because that's what they do, every day of the week, is they're helping all the communities in the Black Hills with all these types of funding things. So they're going to know the right channels that we need to go.
Any idea on the time frame for that application to be in?
As far as the new application, I don't really know yet because we would be needing to get in touch with Black Hills Council and getting that set up. And of course, they're pretty busy, but they're very good at helping us, so.
So do you think it's worth, if it boosts it, per se doubles the 500,000, so it makes it $1 million, but we're looking at 2.
Still a big chunk.
It's still quite the chunk. Do you feel there'll be other grants coming up that might?
That's hard to tell.
No, well, I mean,
yeah.
Because what you're saying is, by saying that it'll double it per se, well, that's kind of an open-ended way of wording it.
Pretty open, because the thing is, it might double the grant, but the project is also doubled, so that remaining portion is still double what it would have been 3 years ago.
So we need to go in and ask for 5, expect 3, and get 2?
Exactly. We need to go in and try to get as much as we can.
Well,
there's no sense in doing it without doing the infrastructure in this
Oh,
street.
well, and that's actually part of the requirement for
I mean,
the
any
street
kind of a
grant.
grant.
Oh, yeah.
We have a extra sheet of paper here that was waiting for us when we walked in tonight about the House Bill 1033 enroll, enact to make an appropriation for provisions of housing infrastructure loans and grants. So I don't know if this is something that we can utilize towards that, but we also need to utilize this stuff for adding on to expand our housing.
I think that's actually for more actual expansion of going into areas that currently aren't developed.
That's for further discussion. Let me share with you the discussion that Tracy, Misty, Jeff, and I had that may help answer some of your questions as far as, you know, the why and the when and the how and additional funding and that kind of stuff. I wanted to chat with the three of them to get a feel of what the right conversation was to have with you folks. The three big projects that we have in front of us that we have to decide about, well, two of them we don't have to decide because you've already made the decision, but the suspended sidewalk. Because of the craziness of the last 2 years, the suspended sidewalk cost inflated by $900,000. The council approved an additional change order or change to the road reconstruction from Minnetonka Bridge up to Dales for replacement of a water line. We're looking at close to $500,000 for that. So there's 1.4 million right there, and a potential increase in this project to $2 million. All three of them, you have to decide, do they fit? Two of them we have to have. We have to have the suspended sidewalk, we have to have the water line. Do we have to have this right away? Do we want to have it? Yes. Do we have to have it? No. The delay in it gives us the opportunity to seek additional funding, and whatever those may be. And to Tracy's point, a lot of that additional funding, the details in it haven't been finalized yet. What we can apply for, what it's going to come out. So delaying this particular one, as regrettable as that may be, gives us an opportunity to find the additional funding, to Craig's point, to do it right.
And hopefully prices come down.
Yeah.
So Tracy, there's no deadline to.
What's that? As well, we would need to make the request for the extension.
For the extension itself, but not a deadline.
Yeah, by fall, we'd have to request the extension, which if we decided we're going to do that, we can go ahead and do that right away. As far as the application for further funding, that would be, you know, as soon as it could be taken care of, I guess. There wouldn't really have I mean, somewhere out there, I guess, you know, it'd kind of sunset and go away, but we're not going to wait that long.
Right. So what kind of time frame are we thinking? Those streets are some of the worst in Hot Spring.
Well, we're looking at 2 years for this project that we're on right now.
So do you think they'll wait that long?
They would give us probably easily another year just on the grant we have.
But we're supposed to be doing this one this year.
Until
It's-
2023.
Actually, it's supposed to be done by, I think, the end of March of 2023 under the current grant. If it got extended by a year, then you really, realistically, you would have next year's construction season to do it.
We're going to still be on the street project.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, is there any way that by asking for this extension, that locks us in at the 500,000, as opposed to opening a door, like you were saying, ARPA stuff is going to go in there, and to boost these others, do we know that that is actually going to happen? Is that decision a final?
That is a question that will have to be put to Black Hills Council to answer, whether or not by saying, yes, we want to extend the $580,000 grant, if that locks us to that and we can't get more money, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very much a question we need to ask.
Yeah, because I don't want to see us, you know, shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to see us lose a grant, by any means, but we all know that that $500,000 is not going to go anywhere to help us. It's a great start, but we need that extra. We surely don't have it in the city's budget, that's for darn sure. We can't come up with 1.5 million for those street projects. We just know that, it's just not gonna happen, so.
And if it wasn't to get boost, are we penalized in any way by rejecting after we've asked for an extension?
I don't think we've ever been down that road before, you know.
Well, you don't wanna reject it and then have them say, well, they or have it taken away from us, we're blacklisted, if you will.
Well, exactly.
We're not gonna give it to Hot Springs because they're gonna send it back or they're not gonna use it or whatever. So I guess my opinion is we need to beat the hell out of those doors at the state using our contacts at Black Hills Council for any kind of funding we can get, as much as we can get. Ask for 5, expect 3, get 2. You know, I mean, we need to do whatever we can. We're not gonna have the money to do the project.
That's what I'm saying.
I think we need to have, call the state or whoever this is and see if we can get an extension before we do anything, and more money.
I would say that when Tracy and I had the call with Paula from the Department of Transportation, even before we got to this point, they were very sympathetic to the supply chain and the cost increase environment that many communities, not just ours, are in, and did share that extensions are not uncommon and not something that they never do. So I would agree that's the best next step. And also that the sewer and water line replacement is a separate project from the road project. It's just in order to get the scoring necessary to get qualified for this grant, we have to commit to that part of the project. So if there's additional resources and new funding out there, that would be for the separate project, I would expect.
We don't have to vote on anything like that.
No, it's just
What we're looking for is some kind of direction from you folks. You know, if the fear is we shouldn't not do the project because we'll lose $500,000 in a grant, then we have to lose $500,000 in a grant because we can't come up with $1.5 million.
Exactly.
I mean, we don't have to vote on Tracy going ahead and checking into it. We can just let it go.
Absolutely not.
No, the more information, the better.
Yeah, I think he needs to go to them and request the extension. That's
I agree.
number one.
I agree.
That's step number one, we should just.
The only part I don't like is when somebody hasn't made up their mind what the rules are going to be, and we're already saying we're going to play.
No, at the heart of it, what I'm looking for from you folks is, do you agree that we ask for an extension? If we get it, great. If we don't, then the project isn't going to happen because we don't have the money.
That's my suggestion, is to get the extension and beat the doors till we can get that extra 1.52 million, whatever we need.
I would say proceed.
Okay. We gotta beat on those doors. I can't say it enough. There's a lot we need to do, but we've gotta beat on those doors to get those grants and that funding that's becoming or could be available for us. We've gotta knock them down.
So should we put a travel request for Misty to go to?
If it helps, I'll go, but I can tell you every other community is doing the same thing.
If it helps, we'll all go.
Might be more impactful to do a travel request for the council to go.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd pay my own way.
All right. So then we're on to our second discussion-only item, wayfinding signage. Review and discuss possible contract with ISG Inc. to develop the city wayfinding signage program and provide professional consultation services in the amount of $28,500, and then discuss the potential funding for that. So about a month ago, maybe, we talked about wayfinding signage and how we were going to proceed with that. And I had mentioned that Jeff and I were going to meet with ISG. ISG is the company that designed our suspended sidewalk for us, and see what kind of services they could put together for us. They're the ones that, they also have done wayfinding signage for other communities. So when Jeff and I spoke with them, some of my questions to them were if they could help us understand the kinds of questions that other communities they've worked with asked to try to figure out what kind of locations to identify for wayfinding signage. And give us some kind of idea of the struggles other communities have had. So the two color sheets that I put together for you, we'll just cover the first one, the sidewalk itself. This is from ISG. It's their latest version of what the suspended sidewalk and the new highway through town will look like. And for me, it speaks to the professionalism of this group and what they can put together, their vision that they're sharing for Hot Springs. And the detail in it is just amazing. When you look at the print, the buildings on the business side are our buildings. They're not just some generic building. When you look at the river side, you can see the ramp that was put in last year going down into the river. You can see the band shell in there. You can see the pavilion that's in Centennial Park. So this is the level, this is the quality of work these folks are able to do for us. This has been shared with the paper. It's also the new picture on the city's website. And if any of you folks would like it, you're certainly welcome to it. But I wanted to share that so that you get some kind of idea of the quality of product that we would get if we partner with ISG. So back in 2016, as best I can figure this out, Nolan met with a number of folks to help come up with signage through town, identified a number of locations, and the list that I had provided you when I asked you to approve the first reading of the wayfinding signage, listed all of those different locations that Nolan and the group had put together. So then doing some further looking, Misty helped me figure out where on the city administrators, on the city's J drive, we refer to it in the different folders that are in there, are some of the different pictures of the different signs in the city that were taken to identify what kind of wayfinding signs we have. So starting on the page that has the Welcome to Hot Springs, the big sign that we have. The top pictures come from the MUTCD, Municipal...
Actually, Uniform Manual of Traffic Control Devices.
Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So that's the federal guides and how we have to do this. So those top pictures are examples out of that federal guide of wayfinding signs that have been used already. And those are very consistent in style and color to what we have on the bottom, our Welcome to Hot Springs. And on the back side are our current, some of our current signs that we have throughout the city. And they're different examples. There isn't any consistency in those signs. There's a Civic Center sign that's green and white. There's a Civic Center sign that's blue and white. And they just don't pop. So we can go that way. It's been suggested that because these different locations have been identified and we can look at the signs, that as a city, why don't we do that? Why do we need to partner with somebody else to do it for us? And I would simply offer the examples of the signs as why I believe we would get a better product if we partner with ISG to do it. The other side of that is, if we do it as a city, I'm not sure who's going to do it. I don't have the time to do it. Jeff doesn't have the time to do it. We can hand this off to somebody else and get it done for us. We don't have to purchase the signs right now. They could give us an idea of what kind of signs they want to go with. Once we know what the costs are, then we can say, okay, this is the level of sign we can afford, or this is the level of sign we can afford, and we can begin budgeting for that. But I just feel that in looking at the proposal that ISG put together for us, I think going with them is the better way to do it. And that comes down to the funding, where are we going to fund it from? That's important to finance, to know where we're going to get that from. Potential funding source could be, if we don't go forward with the 17th Street project, we set aside, we're going to round off here $150,000 for our portion of that. We could take the $28,500 from there and fund this particular one. Still doesn't touch our road projects that we have for this year. We can still get those done. So those are my thoughts, and that's what I wanted to share with you. What questions do you have?
But wouldn't that 150 that we put aside, that's what we got put aside, do a lot of streets in town, patching them?
It would do 300,000 versus not, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, Misty, I did not memorize your April expenditures in the revenue report. I apologize for that. Would this be a legitimate expense for the 213 account?
Bid,
Yeah.
the bid, you can talk to the bid board about that, but they manage those dollars. Council can't go in and just say, you need to spend this much of your money.
I would like to add some background information as far as between May of 2015 and April of 2018, there was a multitude of different entities that created a multiple studies about how to brand hot springs. And they came up, and the mayor at the time, I just recently spoke with her, she said the result of those studies and the branding they came up with was one of the rare times when everybody agreed on the outcome of it. And that was when they came up with the concept of soak-in hot springs. So I was kind of wondering where that went, so I've been kind of looking in on that. And there is going to be a meeting of Hot Springs. It was called the Hot Springs Community Engagement. And we want to revisit the community engagement on that and going forward. And I think it would be wonderful if, and that's going to be this May 10th, which is a week from tomorrow, I think, the 10th, at the space from 5 to 7 in the evening. And Christy Wagner and Shedco were big actors in that process. They're going to be there as well as others. And so I think, you know, this reading that we came up, that we were given in our packet about what ISG could give us, they talk about branding and utilizing that to standardize these signs. And I would like them, if they could come to that meeting as well, so that they can be up on all the efforts that went in towards coming to the Soak-in Hot Springs branding, which I think we need to maintain, because we're all about the water here and the sandstone buildings. So I would like to put out that invitation, and the chamber as well, to come a week from tomorrow night to the space, 5 till 7.
You lost me, who are we?
It's,
I mean, you're not speaking for the council, right?
no, the stakeholders, Hot Springs Community Engagement Group. And I've kind of inserted myself into that.
Okay.
And there is a big study. I've sent copies of them to both Bob and Jeff, and if anyone else would like copies, I can email them to you as well. That talks about how they came, what was involved in the process, which, like I said, was 2+ years involved with lots of different people.
I think Kara had something she wanted to say.
Yeah, I was on council, big board chamber, Shedco, all of the time that this was happening, where Christy Wagner with Dakota Resources came to Hot Springs to do the community engagement process. They were paid by the chamber, Chicago, and I think by the city, to help regain a purpose to the community. Wayfinding Signage was part of that. The branding was part of that. What came out of that was the Black Hills State University study on retail business in the downtown and branding, and the Hot Springs housing. The holistic fair came out of that. The farmers markets came out of that. The geothermal studies came out of that. There were meetings with over 700 groups, and that Christy personally and Shedco was involved with, meeting with. So there was quite an extensive, I think it was 15 to 18, 2013 to 18. And it's quite a process. So I say, I would think that if you were going to go to IG that, and hire them to help you collaborate, with Wayfinding Signage, that you have them involved in that discussion. And I would encourage any of the council to come to that as well. Because Christy has done it on herself, and Shedco, and the discussion is like, it's a stakeholders meeting, discussing the past, where we are today, and where we're going to go on the whole. Just a check-in, basically, of what came out of that, where we are, where we're going from that. And they're going to talk about how, do we want to do another community engagement, that kind of thing. And it's going to be led by Shedco. So if you all can come, that would be great.
So before we get into the details of how we would partner with ISG, you need to decide, do you want to partner with ISG? So that's the question, in front of you tonight, is if that's what you want to do, then we'll get this contract on the next agenda for you to approve. And then I'll circle back to the point that is being made right now as far as the branding and that kind of thing. But what's in front of you now is deciding, do you want to partner with ISG, or do you want the city to tackle this?
I don't think the city can tackle this.
And my comment to the city tackling it, if that's the direction you want to go, is a phrase that's often used in volunteer organizations. If in your representation of that volunteer organization, you think they should accomplish something, then you've just voted that you're going to be one of the people to help them accomplish it. Not that the group should accomplish it, but not necessarily you as part of the group. Somebody else in the group's going to do it. So if you're advocating for the city of Hot Springs to take this on, then I'm going to count on you stepping up to help figure out how to do that.
ISG would be my vote if, when we get to a vote. It's not tonight, it's just discussion. But we want the professionals to be able to do this and make it look right. I mean, we're going through this full 2-year project of a beautiful road system, suspended sidewalk. We're going to have a very, very nice looking community. It's going to be very attractive. We should have the professionals coming in and doing the right thing, in my opinion.
Just be sure to ask them for the big guy discount, since they're already here.
Craig was the first one when we were talking with ISG about the design of the suspended sidewalk. On a number of occasions, he said, we are the veterans, their town, so don't get a veterans discount. We haven't got a veterans discount.
Yeah, they laughed at me.
We haven't invited Craig back either.
I think we'll have to go with ISG.
I do too.
I agree.
I also.
I do have one question, or you, Deb, or yourself. How, with what you explained, how does that help us with picking out signs?
There's a lot of discussion about wayfinding signage, so I think there's information there within the studies and Deborah's got copies of the printed studies that would help if you're gonna go with ISG, it would help them. I mean, work that's already been done, research that's already been done. So there were suggestions on some specific locations of signage, so, you know, it'd just be kind of like a double check, you know, because there was a lot of work put into that already, so. when
I didn't know,
happens-
yeah, I wasn't privy to any of that, so,
And
that's
if you,
why
if
I'm
you read all,
asking.
if you read all of these, all of the presentation that ISG has here in our packet, they actually talk about branding of the city within
I saw
that.
that.
So if we can streamline and give them the ideas of how we've already done the background for that, that can maybe drop the price $1,000 out of, you know, anything helps, I'm sure, to streamline the direction we want to go.
The information's good.
Yeah.
The research can be validated, and I support ISG.
So my question would be, the studies that have been done before for signage, and which I'm unfamiliar with, did they follow that manual that we were talking about earlier, that traffic manual, what'd you call it?
Manual on uniform traffic control.
Manual for uniform traffic control something. I don't know, I wasn't part of any of those discussions, so I don't know.
I would be, you know, if we don't probably want to go outside that realm. I mean, if there's a particular manual that says, you do this, we don't want to
And
fall out of that. But I don't know what the studies have.
because it's signage on a state highway, in a municipality, yes, there are, they have expectations of what the signage will be. The style of it, again, there's some examples there.
That's a very good answer, thank you.
I said I would circle back around. Do you have any other questions as far as whether you want to partner with ISG or not?
No, I'll support that.
So I'll circle back around to the point that Deborah and Kara are making as far as the branding and the wayfinding signage and everything. A while back, the question was put to me, why did the city change from Soaking Hot Springs to the Picture City on our website? And I'm responsible for that, full disclosure. When the council approved going with our new provider, GovOffice, we knew right away that we were going to have a lot more flexibility with our own website. We could change things on the spur of the moment. So at that time, and still, the Chamber is our multimedia folks that help us with that. Carrie in the office is becoming more comfortable in helping us manage the website. So I started out working with Justin, and then went from Justin to Jarrett to Eric. And I believe it was around when I was working with, just forgot his name, our second gentleman, Jarrett. The question was put to me how I would feel about changing from Soaking Hot Springs to the Picture City. So the question was put to me by the Chamber. And I said, well, talk to me about it. And it was shared that at one point in Hot Springs past, we were often referred to as the Picture City. And that had been used in different publications or whatever. So I said, well, I'm not an expert on any of this. The Chamber is there to promote the city of Hot Springs. If that's what you're advocating for, why would I tell you no? I didn't know about any of these studies that had gone on before, the 2015 or whatever. So I wasn't able to draw on that and say, well, we're used to Soaking Hot Springs because of this. So I got on board and said, absolutely. We'll go ahead and we'll change it. It was easy enough to do. So we changed that about maybe a year ago, close to a year ago. And it wasn't until about a month ago that the question was put to me, why did we change? And it was explained that all of these folks had got together and around 2016 and decided that it should be Soaking Hot Springs. The question was put to me, well, shouldn't that have been a council decision? I didn't think so. Didn't see any reason that it needed to be. So going back and looking at the past resolutions, whether there was a resolution or anything that a previous council had passed to say, yes, we want to use soak and hot springs. I mean, if it needs to be a council decision now, why shouldn't it have been a council decision then? And it never was a resolution to the council. So it's not a hill I'm willing to die on as far as what it should be. There is a good case made for brands shouldn't change every 2 or 3 years. But I just wanted to share with you that why it changed and why I advocated for it at the time and went ahead and did it. It was a recommendation from the chamber and it made sense to me at the time.
With all the hot springs memorabilia I have, it does say the picture city in almost all of it. And I figured with all the murals in town, it's kind of fitting that was my opinion.
So when the question was put to me, had a good conversation with Deborah, and asked her, go ahead, take it and run with it, see what you can come out of this, and bring it back to council and see what direction council wants to go for what the branding should be, whether we should go back to Soak and Hot Springs, or whether we should stay with Picture City, or whether we should change it next year, or whatever. It's a fair discussion to have, and for you folks to decide where you want to go with it. So to Deborah's point about folks getting together and having that conversation, when did you say again, Deborah?
May 10th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the space.
I'm just, I guess in a nice way of saying, okay, where do we go from talking about this signage to changing the name of Hot Springs?
Well, it's all about the branding and how you want the signage to look. How you want the signage to look. That's all kind of integrated together.
Okay. That's where you lost me, that's all I'm saying.
Somehow I remember back in the 70s, I saw something that said Southern Gateway to the Black Hills.
Right, that was on the badges of the police officers. And they changed it to Southern Gateway out of the Black Hills. Temporarily in the Black Hills.
That's why I remember it.
It was on your shoulder pad.
No wonder I didn't forget.
And it was just in the paper this week or last week about Edgemont calling themselves the gateway to the Black Hills now. Yeah, because they're the first place you come to at the edge. So they're outside. So they're kind of latching onto that, I think.
So because Deborah had mentioned that that discussion is starting again, I just, again, wanted to provide you full disclosure of why that discussion is coming back around.
Well, and I understood that there was probably around $20,000 put towards that whole project, so it was quite extensive and expensive.
And I might add, Moccasin Springs wasn't even open at the time.
Yeah.
The disclaimer is more about Evans Point Stream,
And the rivers
and Natural River Springs and our history.
Okay, so the council's feelings are to go ahead and partner with ISG to help us through the wayfinding signage?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. So then we'll get that council agenda for your vote.
And are we done with the discussion of how we're funding that portion of 150? That was.
I have no problem choosing part of that money for the street project if we put the rest in on the street project.
Well, I have no problem with that because it's really is part of a street project. You start thinking about signing.
So I would encourage, you have $150,000 budgeted for road improvements this year. If you're going to consider this project within the next year or two, depending on the extension you're allowed, you're not going to come up with that money in a year in additional revenues. So I would encourage you to
Not spend it?
to think about how you're going to come up with it if you intend to do this project, because although there's money out there, most of it's not 100% grant.
Well, that's why my thought of that was the conversation, or
I didn't say I agreed with Craig combining the two. Yes, but that's council's decision. Yes, you can go. 300. I didn't say I advocate for it.
A lot of streets needing fixed.
So, all right.
I just wanted to add something. It seems like whenever there was a discussion about like community engagement and big things in the past, it's in the Kidney Springs gazebo, three-way split between Pittsburgh Chamber and City. And since this directly affects businesses, in the Pittsburgh, they used to give 10% towards city projects. I don't think they've done that for a while. Maybe they would consider being part of it.
I can make sure that they talk about it at their next agenda, and they have been supporting the fireworks and the wrapping of the police cars, so they are still funding some city projects.
That'd be great to get them and anyone else, any other community groups together to put in a little money.
Well, this is a whole community project, so.
Well, and the wayfinding is going to help them find their way to their businesses. So there is an investment there for them.
Depending on what's on the plan.
Right.
May or may not.
True, but within, what ISG mentions, it kind of covers everybody.
Okay, so our last discussion only item, Fall River Health Services request from the city to assist with housing. Housing in Hot Springs is almost impossible. Fall River Health, had a couple discussions with them. They've had employees in the double digits that have accepted a job and then come to Hot Springs and found that there isn't housing available for mom and dad and a family of 2 or more, so they've had to decline accepting the job. It started out, the discussion, that in the legislature, early on, they were trying to figure out how to make money available for housing infrastructure. And it came down to the House Bill 1033 that I shared with you tonight, are some potential funding sources for housing. They've expanded it from what it originally started out as. The particular exciting part about it is that they added the purchase of land necessary to accommodate the projects that fit in the other areas there. This is still being finalized. The details are being worked out here. But I think it's important that we have a discussion, serious discussion with Fall River Health about what we can do to help with infrastructure or housing, not only out around the hospital, but other areas in town. Looking at whether we annex some areas. If we're going to grow as a community, the only way we can do that is to have the housing available for people to join our small community. So I see it as certainly higher on our priority list of what we need to do to provide housing. So I just wanted to have a conversation with you folks to see what your thoughts are, whether housing is important to you, and if you have some ideas on how we can partner with Fall River Health or discussions we can have with you.
So I'll jump the bandwagon already. Again, that's one of those doors we're gonna have to knock down and advocate for Hot Springs. And I said it earlier in our admin finance meeting today, and this is my firm belief, elsewhere it's gonna go leaps and bounds. With that becoming a huge, major military base, they're gonna be hurting it worse than what they are now for housing. With that comes high crime rates, drugs, etc., around large military institutions. It's just a given known fact that that's going to be and get that military dollar however we can. So crime rate's going to go up, drugs are going to go up. Housing is going to be less and less for those folks up around Rapid. As the crime rate, in my eyes, goes up and people in Rapid are not going to stand for it, and they're going to want to move outside of Rapid City to get away from some of that. in my eyes. Go to Spearfish, too much, they're not gonna be able to afford that. Go to Custer, that's the second, that's gonna be high, for rent and homes. Where are they gonna go? Hermosa Hot Springs. We need something here, not only to take care of our own, because of our own people not being able to come in and take jobs and find affordable housing. We need that here, for that alone, and then whatever expansion we're gonna see from what happens up around Ellsworth. I really feel we've gotta beat those doors. We've gotta get that money somehow, some way, so we can make some housing. There's property here that can be developed. There's a lot. I've been looking. I have a lotto dream that I hit that lottery, man, I'm going to town. We're gonna put some housing in. And I've got that in my mind of where to go. But we could do that if we have the funding available and we can beat those doors down. That's my opinion. The VA had I was talking to one of the guys at the call center, a supervisor, and said they could hire 20 new people in at the call center. Well, where are they gonna go? Where are they gonna live? Looks like they're gonna do it virtual. There's 20 families we probably could have had into this community there alone. Fall River Health. Look at all those families.
I think it was 48 employees that they needed.
So we're looking at 70, 80 different families that could have moved in. Talk about hurting our community by not having affordable housing or homes available, apartments available for people to come to live in. Our city administrator had to live over in Buffalo Gap because he couldn't find anything here. I mean, love him dearly, but God, we need you in the city, man. You know, but in my eyes, that's what I think we need to do. We need to look at how we can get some of that money and get some of these projects done. You know, if I could hit that darn lottery, I would find me a contractor and I'd go to town.
You know, the last couple of years, 3 years actually, we have struggled as a council to balance our budget and figure out how we can continue to grow and fund infrastructure that Craig's right. We have a lot of streets in town that need taken care of. But currently we're at a point where we don't have a lot of growth. And if we're going to fund those additional resources, that's going to come through property taxes, it's going to come through salaries, it's going to come through all those kinds of things. So until we get on that bandwagon, we're going to keep struggling with, do we have enough revenue to pay our expenses?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Out where we're at, some people bought a lot, but they said there's only 3 contractors in town, and what they found is they're 2 years out for building. So we got to get some contractors in here also to build, because they're so busy right now. What they did is they just put their lot back on the market because they wanted to move here now. And they can't get a contractor to build a house, so they put it back on the market. And there are lots that are, they're designated for multifamily out there, but nobody's built on them. So that's the biggest problem I'm seeing for what you're saying, is we need more contractors, because, and then building products have skyrocketed. We just redid our floors. It was like $5,000 for the upstairs for plywood, which is a little nuts. So, but anyhow, yes, we paid for it.
You didn't pay too much on the council.
That's what I was wondering, how much are you making? We have different salary rates for different boards, or what?
We're going there. That's not the issue.
No current recollection of that.
I might add the stakeholders meeting again on the 5 to 7. Community engagement, they're going to revisit the housing standard bid. Again, there's like a lot of information that they've done, put a lot of resources and studies and conversation into. So maybe there could be some knowledge gain there from just being part of that. I think shared code could help. What do we do, bring in contractors from outside of the too.
Yeah.
So, I think that now is a really good time to collaborate with Shedco and just at least have discussion, about what we've done and what we can do from here.
And we
One of
did
those
that.
groups was housing, because I was on that one.
Yeah, it was a study.
You know, yeah, we had meetings with a lot of contractors.
Andrea did work with us to get the housing study updated, and council did approve the funding to get that done. I believe it's towards the end of June, maybe July, before they'll actually be able to get back to Hot Springs and do that study. So there will be a new updated study to work with.
Again, all that money is becoming available. I don't think they've got it all figured out yet on how many disbursements are gonna be. Again, that's another one. We've gotta knock those doors down. Let's get some plans together, things like that. We have to get contractors from out of the city, from Rapid or another state to, come in here to do the work. We really need to get something going so we can get some. And I don't wanna just say affordable housing. I wanna just say housing. Because you can make whatever housing as an affordable housing or upper end if you want. I look at that ramp, that truck ramp, and that space to the east of it that's been sitting there, that you could have a 7-plex row house put up there easily and have 7 beautiful homes for somebody to move into. Just easily.
We can take both sides on for the semi?
Well, no, they're on their own now.
Are you talking about the old Catholic dump area? That's all dumping through there. That should be some interesting digging.
No, I just wanted to get it out there for council that, I think we need to engage with these folks and be open to the discussions and a recognition that at some point it may be that we put infrastructure in or we help, fund something in some way, but we need to be part of the discussion. It's our responsibility to help the community grow, and we need to be part of those discussions. All right, anything else? All right, committee reports, administrative and finance, JR, Melanie?
I think I'm gonna take this one. You guys let me know if I say anything wrong. Roll call, there was Misty Summers Walton and Jeff Temple and Deb Johnson, and I was there, and Huddleston, J.R. Huddleston. The old business was the highway fuel system repairs and agreement, waiting new CA and PD chief. That's currently on hold for Jeff. ARPA, the $633,320. The ABHC OLG standard revenue loss covering salaries and wages, and then the water, wastewater infrastructure improvements. The wastewater return 25,000 digester lid, and wastewater 100,000 clarifier arm, and the water 400,000 additional water line needed from Dale's Family Restaurant to Minnetonka is we'll continue waiting for additional funds and no changes to the current plan. The new business is we reviewed monthly finance officers' reports, 2021 annual report. This provides an overview of the 2021 annual report, and we discussed it. The committee, number 2, committee member items. The state available funding for projects in housing, and just that we need to do our due diligence, just like we talked about just a few minutes ago. So we discussed that. The utility service partners, referral business offering insurance to homeowners for utility breaks between home and street. Initial term is 3 years. More info and contract will be available for the next council meeting on that. And number 3 is our 2015 budget training and planning. We have a process in place. Plan on conducting it the same as last year. Department heads are already being involved in meetings with them begin in June. Number 4, updates on our Police Department Homeland Security grant for 5 mobile computers. Initial cost estimates all paid by Homeland Security grant, $64,500. Ongoing added expenses, $5,800 estimated. We're waiting for an update and waiting for further information. Updates, number 5, updates additional costs related to water and wastewater replacement road project, ongoing review and discussions necessary for $39,368.69 from Northwest Pipe, 4/19/22, $15,662.30 for Northwest Pipe, 5/2/22, $87,000 additional needed to cover contracted amount. And the admin finances requiring more time or real time to update on the project's costs, additional expenses, and how to pay for them. We're needing to do some more research and funding availability from the state. Meeting adjourned at 2:10. Next meeting is June 6th at 1 o'clock at the Miller Center. All welcome. Did that cover it?
Any questions for JR or Melanie? Thank you. Airport Advisory, Bill?
Airport Advisory will meet this Thursday, May 5th, 8:30 at the airport.
Thank you. Custer Fall River Waste Management, Larry?
Custer Waste Management Fall River will meet Thursday, May the 12th at 7 p.m. at the Miller Center.
Thank you. Historic Preservation, Deborah?
The Historic Preservation Commission meets this Wednesday, May 4th, 5 o'clock here at the Mueller Center.
Thank you. Evans Plunge Advisory, Linda?
The Evans Plunge Advisory Committee will meet May 12th at noon at the Evans Plunge.
Thank you. Parks Recreation, Larry?
We'll meet May the 4th, this Wednesday at 2 p.m. at the Miller Center. Everybody is invited.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning, Deborah?
Planning and Zoning met March 16th at 7 p.m. at City Hall with Don Olstad presiding. Present were Don Olstad, James Forboard, Dwight Wienia, Wayne Hageman, Christine Heidebrink. Staff present were Scott Sogi, Carrie Pyle, and myself. A guest present was Sarah Beckman. The Birch development off of 4th Street was discussed under new business number 1. Mr. Sogi provided details. A local resident, Tony Whitman, received a letter from M. Birch, I don't know if I'm saying that right, who is wanting legal access to his property in proximity to North 4th Street. After reviewing the region and the nearby properties, the commission suggested the developer, Mr. Birch, apply the design standards per City Ordinance 154.04. Number 2, Historic Sandstone Building Window Dressing Project by Sarah Beckton and others. Sarah handed out an information packet with descriptions and photos of the window dressing project. Her communication was to inform the commission of the purpose and extent of the project. The project plan is to beautify the historic district's empty and derelict buildings with local artwork. Under old business, number 1 update from February 16th commission meeting for the Calville family property in the Cottage Grove addition, and that's up northwest of the state vet's home. The need is for the city of Hot Springs to be provided with enough easement to the water tower so as not to drive across the Calville land. A phone call was placed to the law office of Stephen Titus and Associates. The call was placed on a speaker with the commission, and the Hot Springs Resolution 2017-13 was discussed. Conversation consisted of who needed to be contacted about the locked gate on the lane to the property. The discussion ended with an agreement that the city attorney would be contacted for further clarification. The number 2 Martin Tract, new subdivision with 5 duplexes. This land is located, I believe, between the Jehovah's Witness building and the entry to Boulder Falls Edition off of 71. And the design work is still in progress for that. Number 3, the Canton Street RFP, that's with the governor's houses up on Canton and 22nd. An update regarding the unfinished ROW work and the lot drainage is that the city is moving forward on the hopeful closing of the RFP with Halt Homes. Number 4, additional dwelling unit options. The commission reviewed the example of the ADU ordinance being used to create a final ADU ordinance for Hot Springs. The commission will continue to modify this sample ADU to arrive at a finished ADU ordinance for city approval, council approval. Number 5, city development road paving requirements was not discussed, and again, annexation is an ongoing discussion with reference to the 3-mile limit and platting. Budget for annexation is a question. Olsted and Sogi discussed with developer in Rapid City, and annexation process continues. The meeting adjourned at 8:50 p.m. The next meeting is Wednesday, May 18th at 7 p.m. in City Hall.
Any questions for Deborah? Thank you, Deborah. Public safety, Bill, JR.
Public safety will meet this Thursday, the 5th of May at 2 p.m. at the conference room here at the Mueller Center.
Thank you, gentlemen. Public Works, Dave, Greg.
Met on April 26th, present with myself, Mayor Bob, Deborah, Dave, Billy, Jeff, Tracy, and Scott. New business, the Boardwalk Hill had a severe water break, and it pretty much ruined the street going down, and it'll be closed for more or less indefinite until we get enough money to fix it again. The preparation for the micro piles will begin this month on River Street. Trimming of the trees in the alleys. Most of the trees are done, Billy says. We'll start again in the fall. We got too much to do this summer to worry about that. Valley View drainage, that's going to happen this summer. They got most of their stuff together. Wastewater treatment plant. We're taking bids on digester lid. Have we gotten any yet?
We've got a guy that's gonna get us a quote. He
Who?
said real soon.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just getting the paint spec.
Okay, thank you. Code enforcement specialist. I guess we're waiting for another letter to be mailed to the people that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Food trucks, where the city's putting up a sign in the park. Should be done
2 weeks maybe.
2 weeks maybe. Or this summer sometime. Old business. We talked about the snow removal, the contract, and it was on the agenda. Summit Road, we're looking at some kind of fence to put along the wall behind all the food trucks to keep people from climbing the hill and stuff and to catch any big debris that might roll down and hurt somebody. Old business. Oh, well, I guess I was old. On the Garden Street, we asked for a monthly report, so whenever they...
On the garden, that'd be on the city garden.
Yeah.
City garden, they'll give us, once a month, they'll give us an update on their progress and any other information.
Yeah. Clubhouse retaining wall, have they started on that yet? Yeah.
RFP's on the street now.
Okay. That should be starting before too long. North River cleanup. They got Minnetonka bridge, and they have to put some more rock along the north, the east side, or they can leave that the way it is. Yes, we haven't
There's some more work
discussed
to do over there, but they've done most of it.
Yeah, most of it.
Okay,
They're putting topsoil down, last I saw the other day.
okay, well, Dollar General, the road that's poured wrong, they're supposed to be fixing in July, so we're told, Scott said.
Was the agreement,
Yeah.
and we haven't heard from them yet.
The icy spot by the Vision Source building, we can talk to the state and see if their street goes down that far to fix it.
That's
If
gonna
not,
pick it up or not.
yeah, if not, we're gonna have to try to figure something out. Our next meeting is May 10th, 1 o'clock at the Mueller Center. The public is welcome.
I have to make a correction. Planning and zoning met April 20th, not March, well, we did March 16th as well. But these are the correct, no.
That's a long time
Yeah.
ago, we were talking about that, wow.
These are the right minutes, that the date is April 20th. The minutes are correct.
Any questions for Dave or Craig?
Yeah, I got a question and a statement. Through you to Jeff, have you talked to Carrie about the code enforcement? Nothing.
You lost me, Laura, I'm sorry.
Oh, on Sunday, on Saturdays, you mean?
Yeah, you wanted the phone number to get.
Oh, yeah, no,
I carry.
I briefed you guys at the last committee that he had basically turned us down.
Yes.
And said, no, I mean, they didn't say that, but I mean, we're on our own, basically. If we want it, if we want the additional days, we've got to essentially buy more dumpsters, and we already do that now, so, twice a year, so, I mean, that was the answer.
And the other one is, Carrie said that Saturday, for the general public, if anybody wants to come out and help at work at the city garden, we'd appreciate that help. That's it?
For the record, the other Carrie you were talking about for the dump was Carrie Barker.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's what threw me.
Yeah, Carrie, they're both spelled the same way. Sorry.
You had mentioned Dollar General, Craig. Take a look at your email. I forwarded an email from, I forget his name, that's representing Dollar General. They want to meet, want to have a phone call, I believe, tomorrow, so check your email.
Okay.
To see when that's going to happen.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Southern Hills Golf Course, Jeff?
Yes, that's me. Before I go any further, let me just say kudos to Misty. She found her $900, got it back from Trumpia on the text. I know it's a drop in the bucket for the million that we need. Every $900 counts. So that was
For every dollar.
That's right. So that was an awesome thing. Next meeting for the golf committee is on the 12th of May at 6 p.m. at the Golf Course Clubhouse. Move on to city administrator. We're just busy with season permits and plans and working to finish the Fall River project. I sent an email out to staff today on this evening, I guess. There's a new event this summer. It's the Hokie Hay Motorcycle Challenge. I don't know about it, but anyway, this is the first year, I guess, that Hot Springs is the final gathering point destination. That's kind of an awesome thing. You couldn't pick a worse year with traffic and all that, but they're still doing it. July 9th is their end of road party. These are people that signed up as a fundraiser for a 10,000-mile motorcycle ride. I'm like, okay, I can't sit in a chair 5 hours, much less a motorcycle. Anyway, that's on there. We're working closely with Hot Springs, Keep Hot Springs Beautiful, to design and prepare the eventual bump out, well, I call it a bump out, mini park, if you will, in front of Lynn's Dakota Mart. And I'm trying to put our best foot forward as folks arrive into Hot Springs out there. And that's all I've got from those two.
Any questions for Jeff?
Hokahe.
Hokahe.
Hokahe. The real fancy Hollywood word.
Is it? What does it mean? Oh, okay. Well.
I think it means I am coming.
Yeah.
Back in the day when they made the movie Custer, Crazy Horse,
Oh, yeah?
Hollywood had to have a go-to word,
Huh?
but
I'll
now
look
it's
it
a
up.
traditional word.
Probably something dirty, I just don't know.
It's reading.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yes.
Misty?
I'm gonna take a little more time than Jeff did. I know this is
That's why I made mine quick for you.
5 pages of a narrative of highlights of the 2021 annual report. I'm not gonna read all of it to you, but there are some highlights I want to make sure the points get across. We have 6 governmental funds, and I'm going to go through those first. Our governmental funds are accounted for and reported differently than our enterprise or proprietary funds because unlike businesses, they don't provide service as a means to an end, like a profit, but rather they're an end in and of themselves. Our general fund is by far the largest as far as activity and fund balances. Property taxes and general sales, service, and use taxes are the major sources of revenue for the general fund, and they provide the majority of the funding needed for all 25 general fund departments. Total revenue collected in the general fund for 2021 was $3.6 million and some change. 1.2 million and some change of property taxes were collected. That was about 4,200 less than the levied and budgeted total. I wanted to add these notes in this annual report because I've heard this repeated and we'll talk about it at budget time, but pursuant to a law in South Dakota 10-1335, property tax levies are limited to the amount of property tax dollars received in the previous year, plus the annual increase provided by the index and growth factors. So first I'd point out that the total value of property located in the city limits increased by over $14 million in 2021. That kind of growth sounds great. It's about 8.6% of our total, yet the maximum increased levied amount that's allowed by that statute for our city was just over $31,000 in 2021, which is an increase of only 2.6% over the previous year. As a result of the growth in values, our mill levy decreased by 0.38% to 6.5%. So we see some great growth, but that growth doesn't equate dollar for dollar to additional sales or property tax revenue for the city. But it does help our property owners in their tax because our levy goes down. 2/3 of the general sales and use tax is also deposited into the general fund, and that totaled a little over 1.3 million, and it exceeded projections by a little over 300,000. I'm not going to read some of the highlights on expenses and revenues. I will add that $13,000 of CRRSSA airport grant money was received, $1,000 from DANR for trees for our cemetery were received, and a cash donation of $27,000 was given to the city for the future purchase of playground equipment to be installed at Upper Chautauqua Park in memory of Marguerite Mason. Expenditures totaled a little over $3.5 million. Salaries, wages, payroll taxes, and benefits accounted for 49% of total expenses in the general fund. Additional appropriations over budgeted amounts were approved to cover unexpected and unbudgeted purchases. Some highlights include $267,000 in our legal department of additional appropriation. We were able to settle the long awaited corner construction lawsuit. We also settled property with purchasing back some property from Froman's, and then did the demolition of the West Oak building, and that was the highlights of the $267,000 in additional legal expenses. $47,000 for our PD vehicle repairs and equipment, $17,650 for some Mueller Center heating system repairs, $41,000 additional in streets for some leave payouts, loader tires, and engineering for River Street repairs. $12,400 for parks. Those included additional new expenses at the vendor park or the food vendoring park, and the Brookside sprinkler projects. Over $15,000 for the library to cover an employee leave payout, some additional book supplies, and the purchase of an AED. The general fund had a gain of $118,800.66 in 2021. Our liquor, lodging, and dining fund collected 120% of anticipated revenue for the year, exceeding projections by almost $32,000. This was a significant and unexpected improvement over 2020 results. The pandemic significantly impacted tourism, even in our state, and we're grateful to see the increases in these sales and thankful for the resulting increase in this type of tax revenue for both the city and the chamber, which receives 80% of the revenues that we collect from this fund. So in 2021, the chamber was distributed almost $150,000 from the city. The remaining 20% is designated to pay utilities and building expenses at the Mueller Center and the depot. Historically, the fund struggles to maintain adequate reserves or income to cover the ongoing expenses of and repairs needed at both those facilities. So many building repairs expenses are paid from the general fund budget. This fund had a gain of almost $27,000 in 2021. The remaining 1/3 of the general sales, service, and use tax is deposited into our additional sales tax fund. Total revenue collected in that fund was a little over $1.4 million. Total expenses were only $728,000. Significant revenue increases included the taxes collected exceeding projections by $153,000, $1,500 of interest earned, and almost $300,000 in street assessment payables were collected. So that includes the Back 9 and Boulder Falls street improvement assessments. Airport improvement grant revenue of a little over $87,000 and state grant revenue of almost $308,000 were received for the reimbursement of expenses related to the design of the 10-unit T-Hanger and the final expenses related to the Jennings Bridge replacement project. The fund had a gain of almost $700,000 in 2021, primarily due to no Southern Hills Golf Course or Evans Plunge Mineral Springs subsidies being needed, which saved that fund a budgeted amount of over $250,000. First time since I've been here that we've achieved that. The bid fund is also a governmental fund, the 213 fund we talked about earlier. That fund was established in 2011 and is fully funded by the $2 per unit per night fee collected from transient guests of all lodging establishments located within the boundaries of the city. This fund, similar to the 211 fund, was heavily impacted by the pandemic in 2020, and in 2021 they were able to bounce back and collected revenues higher than they had since 2013. $99,673 in revenue, so that was up 33.8% over last year. Expenses totaled $64,700 and were primarily related to marketing and advertising. The bid fund has an agreement with Lawrence and Schiller to promote the city, and these dollars are matched by the State Department of Tourism, resulting in almost $60,000 of advertising. This fund had a gain of almost $35,000 in 2021. Interestingly, close to the amount we need for wayfinding funding. Yeah, I added that. Those are in my notes. The Hot Springs Capital Improvement Fund, or our 501 fund, was established in 2013 to account for financial resources related to special projects throughout the community. This fund had a loss, but we stuck the $2.8 we received from the state in exchange for the long-term maintenance and repairs on University Avenue, but for the sidewalk in this fund, so we are expecting to see a loss the next couple years as we spend that money. Revenues of $10,040.60 were received. That was $6,404 of interest earnings and $3,636, which we transfer from the general fund recreation budget for donated baseball instructor and assistant wages. Those funds that come in are eventually spent on projects that are related to baseball and t-ball improvements. The last governmental fund for the city is the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. 1/2 of the payments collected for the sale of cemetery lots are deposited into this fund. There's a state statute that establishes a minimum that's required to be maintained for the perpetual care of the cemetery. Amounts in excess of that $50,000 can be spent on care and improvements. Revenues were almost $4,900. That was $4,750 for the sale of lots and some interest. And expenses were about $3,500, and that was for the installation of a fence and 8 new trees at the cemetery. Capital asset additions for governmental funds included an HVAC at the city shop for about $10,500. A street department sander was purchased for almost $17,000. A new four-wheeler for $8,100. An airport mower for a little over $11,000. New skylight at the Mueller Center for almost $26,000. River pump and heat pump repairs at the Mueller Center for $25,500. The Jennings Bridge replacement was finished at a final cost of $1.7 million, little over $1.7 million. We did the irrigation at Brookside Park for $5,600. We purchased and outfitted a police department Durango for $62,800. The following projects had related expenses capitalized and are currently in progress at year end. The amounts are the 2021 additions, not totals. That's the sidewalk project, about $42,600. And then the airport 10-unit T-hanger, $90,900. And Minnetonka Bridge, $7,230. And then the North River Street reconstruction, $26,400. Our proprietary or enterprise funds are the water fund, the wastewater fund, the solid waste fund, the golf course fund, and the Evans Plunge fund. Water had a gain of $38,000. They had $1.1 million in revenues. Highlights are mostly the metered and flat rate water charges, the water fill station, and bulk water sales. I would highlight that Fall River Water user sales resulted in $145,876 additional dollars in revenue, and remind you that no revenue from those sales are built into the yearly budget, as there's no minimum in our agreement and the totals vary widely between years. Total expenses were $1.1 million, a little over $1.1 million. It excludes the following capitalized purchases: $108,000 for the Martin Street water line expansion. Highlights of expenses include almost $300,000 in salaries and wages, payroll taxes and benefits, almost $66,000 in street walk repairs, almost $58,000 in water sewer repairs, $60,000 in electricity, $60,000 in improvements other than buildings, and $214,000 depreciation. The water fund provides an operating transfer of $125,000 to the general fund. And I mentioned their gain already. The wastewater fund had a gain of $384,000 or $71,000 without the SLFRF grant dollars. So we talked and have been talking about the $313,125, total of $626 SLFRF grant dollars that we have not spent yet, and those dollars are sitting in this fund waiting for the projects. Total expenses were almost $800,000 and excludes the following capitalized purchases: $90,000 for the Martin Street sewer line, $25,000 for a grinder, and $67,000 for a portable camera system. $179,000 salaries, wages, payroll taxes, and benefits. $89,000 in sewer water repairs, $42,000 in electricity and propane, and $195,000 depreciation. They also do an operating transfer to the general fund. The solid waste fund, which is our 612 fund, pays out 100% of collected payments for residential garbage service, including optional residential recycling. We had an emergency contract with Sanders in 2021, and you approved in 2022 to continue the contract for services with them. The fund also receives the $2.25 monthly city fee charged to all utility customers, and those funds are used to assist with expenses related to city trash collection and disposal along the roadways and parks, managing the city yard waste and brush piles, and also to repair and replace refuge totes. The fund had a gain of $11,280 in 2021. So the two highlights, the Southern Hills Golf Course Fund, although they had a loss of $6,800, the loss was largely related to the expense of depreciation of $112,000. No subsidy was needed in this fund. Revenue exceeded expectations. They totaled $605,000 roughly, and expenses were $612,000. Evans Plunge, which was created in 2013 when the city purchased the facility, following a public vote on the matter, collected $745,000 in revenues, which was 93% of their projections. If you remember, they had to close 2 days because of some staffing issues, but 93% of their projections were collected, and 76% of their budget for expenses was $615,000. They had some capitalized purchases that were excluded from that, $5,200 for 2 pool exhaust fans, $9,300 for the health club tile work. Lots of salaries and wages were paid, but the significant savings in the expenses was the fact that they just couldn't hire enough help, and that also resulted in the additional day of closure. So for the first time since purchasing the facility, no subsidy was needed in 2021, and the fund had a gain of $129,000, and that includes their depreciation expense. Bravo. There was no new debt added in 2021, but the city did make the following annual debt-related payments. I have those spelled out. I'm not going to read them to you. I tried to highlight the number of years you can anticipate those payments, what year you're on of annual payments, and the fund the payments come from. If you'll remember, in late 2020, effective 2021, we refunded and reissued or refinanced the Evans Plunge Mineral Springs sales tax bonds to lower both the coupon rates and the term. Although not reflected anywhere in our 2021 annual report, the city received a very generous donation in September, and we passed Resolution 2021-18 accepting the Tom and Ann McCauley Vision Fund donation. The account was established with the South Dakota Community Foundation for the benefit of the city of Hot Springs. They were longtime residents of Hot Springs and wanted to give back by creating a vision fund to support projects and activities that wouldn't currently receive financial support from the city. The total net assets at year-end were $114,000, and an initial grant-making committee comprised of well-recognized community members is tasked with reviewing requests and distributing the annual distributable amounts. The city's ongoing attempts to be financially prepared for the Highway 385-18 road reconstruction project will be tested in the next couple years. We did not specifically set aside any funds to help pay for those expenses in 2019, 2020, or 2021, but we were able to add funds to the balances available and most funds again in 2021. We've used cash applied to balance the last 2 budgets passed and supplementally appropriated an additional $400,000 in unassigned fund balances, which is our savings, to the general fund in 2021. We also additionally appropriated $311,000 to the sewer fund, $253,000 to the water fund, $63,000 to the golf course fund, and those are all from their respective unrestricted net positions or also savings. In 2021, we were fortunate to have the funds available to apply to what has been considered necessary expenses and or emergencies. This is largely due to the efforts of previous councils and administrations to be financially prepared for the city projects associated with the road reconstruction project. I have concerns with our ability to continue with this trajectory going forward as reserves are used up and unexpected expenses pop up. Although no new debt was added in 2021, we authorized 2 new debt obligations in the 2022 budget, approximately $80,750 a year for 6 years. 4 new full-time positions were added and 2 part-time positions were added to our workforce. Other than a yearly contribution from the Hot Springs School District to support the cost of an SRO position, all other additions were added without addressing how they will be funded. Another full-time street maintenance position was added in early 2022, and increases to the accrued top of scale wages for police department captain, officers, and part-time lifeguards and head lifeguards, and then a $1 increase to all employees' hourly wages was also added. I estimated the added expenses to be about $210,000, but that estimate doesn't include overtime, holiday pay, call-out pay, inclement weather pay, or any leave payouts. These significant increases will need to be offset by reductions in other city areas of spending. Council, as the governing body of the City of Hot Springs, is responsible for ensuring the financial stability of the city. You're the approvers of all expenditures and have the responsibility of ensuring that each and every purchase made on behalf of the city is needed, necessary, and follows the guidelines established in federal and state laws and our city procurement policy. As stated in that policy, each dollar spent should be for a legitimate public purpose and should be done obtaining the best value possible. This ongoing financial responsibility cannot be overstated, especially now facing the funding challenges related to improvements tied with the road reconstruction project. These are just some of the highlights of the many, many things that went on in 2021. If I've left something out that should be mentioned or noted, please be sure to let me know. And I encourage each of you to review the annual report and the complete audit reports when they're available in detail. If you're looking for any more information regarding any of the related topics, please don't hesitate to ask. You have your regular profit and loss summary fund for the whole year report to review. You have your budget to actual report for the whole year to review, and I also included the balance sheets for all the funds and departments in the city for your review. It's respectfully submitted. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Misty? Thank you very much. It's not part of your report, but I wanted to ask you a couple times and keep forgetting, so it came to mind as you're going through your report. Can you ask our insurer to take a look at the roof on the library and see if there's any damages that they're willing to cover? Peggy said there's an additional leak that's cropped up there.
Is this the related to a hailstorm or something? You need Dave?
Windstorm?
Okay. Huh?
Could be windstorm.
Okay.
All of the above?
I suspect it's the cumulative storms over the years.
Okay. There's usually incidences, but I'll call now.
Well, we had the recent one here a couple weeks ago when we had some hail.
Wind.
And we've had significant wind. Have to take a look.
Insurance are still paying out on last fall's big hailstorm we had too.
Thank you, Misty. For me, I'll keep this very brief. We spent a lot of time talking about the road reconstruction up around the school. And we also spent time talking about the wayfinding signage and then Fall River Health. So those were on my list of things to talk to you about, and we've already done that. But I do, on a personal note, I want to add my appreciation to city staff and all the council for your participation in the committee meetings. The reports that you give are detailed, and it certainly shows how much interest you're taking in those committees. So I want to thank all the ladies in the office for helping put those agendas together and just help coordinate all that. But I want to thank you folks personally for the time that you give to those committees. Some of it is in the evening, I think Deborah's here too, or any evening, I believe, so thank you for that. So with that, say my personal thanks for all the time that you put in the committees. We'll leave my report at that and entertain a motion to adjourn.
And Larry, before you go there, Larry, just so you know, it's a great day to die. That's the translation in Lakota, so you know, okay? I'll let you know that.
Good.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Favor?
Thank you.
Opposed?